Oh, you're gonna see
All right.
her now.
We're getting ready to
Oh,
start.
Vera, she is a lady.
It's 6.
John, is Kim in the,
She has been emailing me and she will be here in a minute.
okay.
Okay, well, all right. All right, 6 o'clock, so let's start this study session of Urbana School District 116. Roll call, please.
Member Stanton? Member Jones?
Here.
Member Hickson?
Here.
Member Baxley?
Here.
Member Langendorf here, Vice President Exon, President Pulowski.
Here, are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to tonight's agenda?
Other than the removal of the executive.
Actually, we're actually going to have
Oh, okay.
Yep. The board, now, citizen statements. Is anybody here present wishing to make a statement for the board? Please fill out a goldenrod sheet, hand it to our recording secretary, Lori Johnson. There is no one indicating wishing to make a statement before the board at this time. There is a call for an executive session after tonight's meeting with no action by the board following for 2 reasons. One is for personnel and another is for litigation facing the district. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in
Second. Sorry.
It's been moved and loudly seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Student ambassador report.
Sorry. So this is a new project, I guess, or just an idea that I want to put out that I've been talking about with Mr. Guzman and a lot of the SIs at the high school, because this semester I noticed that there were a lot of new students that came in like randomly, and a lot of the times it was teachers having to show them where to go last minute, or students who are just like walking by or something like that. And so I started thinking that I think it might be a beneficial idea to have a certain group of students dedicated to showing new students around. A good point one of the SIs brought up was that there's not as many teachers as there are students, so it could be helpful to have one student that, like upperclassmen, so junior, senior, that knows their way around the school, have like a group of students. And this can happen. My idea was to do it on freshman orientation, even though they take you through your classes kind of, just to have like more of an in-depth like guide of where to go, because I know when I was a freshman I was definitely lost even after freshman orientation, and I just can't imagine like being a new student and it's a new semester, everyone already knows where they're going except for you, so you just feel lost. And so I think it'll be very beneficial just to have a student take a group of people, or just have a special group of people that you can call down to the office if there's a new student, and just show them around to their classes, to the bathrooms, to anything like that, just to help them feel more seen instead of being scared to ask, because I know like some people just don't want to talk to anyone, or like too scared to ask for help. And so having that one person just show them that they can ask questions for, I think will help them a lot feel safer and better being in a new school.
That's a really good idea.
Thank you. But yeah, that's all I wanted to bring up today, just to have something to think about and stuff. So I'm talking about it with Mr. Guzman and SIs, and hopefully it'll be something that we can start soon.
Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And thank you. It's now time for board reports. Anybody any board member wishes to give a report to the board?
A couple of weeks ago, I received an email from a constituent who pointed out to the board, I guess it was 2 board members, so I assume we all got it, that individuals, there's part of our policy 2.140, communications to and from the board, and it said individuals from the policy may submit questions or communications to the board's for the board's consideration to the superintendent, or may use the electronic link in the board's email addresses posted on the district website. The superintendent or designee shall, make sure the website is working. But also, number 2, during the board's regular meetings, report for the board's consideration all questions or communications submitted through the active electronic link, along with the status of the district's response in the board meeting packet. I think this is a good idea. And as a new board member, I have struggled. The reason I think it's a good idea is, well, number 1 is if it's a policy, we probably should do it. But number 2, I have struggled with how to respond to questions or comments from the public. And Paul knows this because I have complained to him about it. And he knows that I have not always done a good job. But I've tried. But I would like to see us work towards something like this because often I don't know how to respond, and lately I haven't responded as much. I feel bad if I feel like I'm just responding in a cold manner, and I feel badly if I don't respond. I think it would be good, for me anyway, if I knew that somebody had responded and what that response was. And so I am going to suggest that at some future meeting that we discuss this or figure out how to follow the board policy. And I had said in my email to Paul, gee, I think that's a good idea. And that it must have, somebody else must have thought that was a good idea or it wouldn't be part of board policy.
Yeah. No, I think it's worthwhile having a policy discussion around it. The only concern I would have is there are times when we receive emails from constituents that give private information from,
Right.
from their children or whatever, and we want to make sure to respect the privacy of the people
course.
contacting us. So, I think doing a deeper dive into the policy, how to adhere to it, and the ramifications of how we, the side effects, I should say, of how we implement a practice around the policy. I think it's worthwhile discussing at a future date. Anyone else?
I have something for my board report regarding, do you want a response for that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, if it was just before we move on, let's close this topic real quick.
Yeah, I think we need more clarification exactly what that question was, because it's assuming that we know all that information, and I don't think we do, about what the policy has been and why it was that policy and what we're
Yeah.
not doing that is to follow that policy.
No, that's
So-
why it's a good reason. I think I'm in favor of talking about it more in depth, so we can dig into all of that. All right, go ahead and give your report, Sherry, please.
Thank you. I just wanted, I'll start with the Tiger Market because we've changed from before school breakfast. We're now in the lunchroom, sitting there all lunch periods, asking for students to come up and look at the things that we have. And we've also taken them into the Tiger Market so that they can shop for anything that they want. Last week, we started with 35 students who came up and represented over 100 family members, almost 200. I don't have the exact numbers with me right now. Today, we had Thirdmore, we had over 48 students that came to shop at the pantry. And we had the items in the lunchroom, and occasionally we would go and get some more items if they requested something. So I really like that we're doing it. I think the students know that we're there now and expect us. And if anybody wants to help, it's great because we're there for about 3.5 hours. So, but what I wanted to say is because every week we hear about concerns that the students have about the food in the lunchroom, and we listen and we want to know what the situation is. But I went around today, and every time in the lunchroom I go there, and it's amazing what all the different options that the students have. Now you have to remember, when we went to school a long time ago, we had one option. This is your lunch, and this is what you're getting today, whether you like it or not. So when I saw all the different options there were, and how they really, students are really choosing these options as well. When I went back, half of the salads were gone, almost all the sandwiches were gone. So I'm hoping that they're finding things, and what a wonderful way, because we at the food pantry want so bad to be able to give fresh vegetables and fresh fruits, and they're available. There's so many different options. Every station had several vegetables, cooked vegetables, raw vegetables, hummus, and it might not be the things that the students like or would want other things, but we know at least they're getting some good nutritional options. And I hope that you'll continue to work with with the food service so that you can get some of the other things that you might want that you're not getting now. But I'm just really impressed with the quality and the quantity that they provide for students. So, and other things I'm learning at the high school, they do have the Echo. So I think the student ambassadors give a good job of telling us what's happening at the high school, and so does the superintendent. But if you get a copy of the Echo, I think it's published twice a year, is that correct? But it's also available online, uhsecho.com, and they're pertinent stories. I mean, there were stories that were written this week. So it's another way to find out what's happening at the high school. So, thank you.
Anyone else wish to give a board report? All right, moving on. Our study topic tonight is gaining early awareness and readiness for undergraduate programs. Gear up.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Carando. I'm from the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, or ISAC. We are going to be administering the Illinois Gear Up grant, and I wanted to share a little bit more information with you about it this evening. Just first, before I get started on that, I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of ISAC and what we do. Like I said, it's the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. One of the main things that we're known of around the state is administering the MAP grant. So the MAP grant is for Illinois students who stay in Illinois for their post-secondary. So they're awarded, once they fill out their FAFSA, we receive that information. Students might receive a Pell Grant as well, but if they receive a MAP grant, it is coming directly from ISAC. So that's one of the main things that we are known for and that we do. But then I work in our outreach division. So we are getting the word out to students about the programming that we have available. We run a variety of scholarship programs as well. We have a program services division for that. But then within our outreach services side, we're really working directly with students to make sure not only that they're aware of these programs, but also that they have all of the information that they need to make good decisions for themselves after high school, whether that's doing career exploration, knowledge about the college application and financial aid process, financial literacy, all those kind of different things. So that's just a little bit of background about ISAC. And then we applied for the Gear Up grant actually a year or so ago. Initially, the grant wasn't awarded, but then we found out this past November of 2024 that we were going to be awarded and should start working with the schools in the application right away to start onboarding the schools and working with students as soon as possible to meet some of the goals that I just mentioned. So a unique thing about Gear Up is that they want to start working with students much earlier than kind of what I just mentioned, which is, juniors and seniors, students who are getting ready to transition out of the high school space. So for Gear Up, they really want to start working with 6th and 7th graders, specifically with this grant. It is to start these conversations with students, activities, resources as early as possible to get them thinking about what they might want to do after high school, build some of those developmental skills, study skills, things that are just going to help them succeed regardless of what they decide to do post-graduation. So for this grant, it is a 7-year award. So it is a longer term grant, which is a great thing. And as I mentioned, we would start this year working with 6th and 7th graders. So those would be our cohort students. And then the grant comes with a priority model as well, meaning that we would work with those 11th and 12th graders throughout the duration of the grant to make sure that they're getting all the resources that they need as quickly as possible, since they're going to be the earliest or soonest making those decisions. So kind of a broad look at it. So this year for the 24-25 school year, we're already a good bit of the way through it, but would want to start working with 6th and 7th graders, and then in those 11th and 12th graders. And then for the 25-26 school year, which would be considered year 2 of the grant, we would work with 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then also the 11th and 12th graders. So you would add on essentially a year to the grant every year until you kind of meet in the middle, which would be about year 3 or 4, and are working with the full 6th through 12th grade in both buildings or both parts of the school district. something that we included in this grant that I think is going to be really great for schools and for students is a district coordinator position whose responsibility would be to work with all of these students to bring those grant services. So they would kind of bridge between both schools and work with the students included in the cohort. So that position is grant funded as well. We would reimburse the school district from a sub grant that I'll talk a little bit more about later because there are other funding opportunities there as well. But this is something that is reimbursed to the school district from ISAC through the Department of Education grant. And just kind of the structure of the other things that the Gear Up coordinator would be working on. I know that you all received a little context for this and maybe some resources beforehand. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Illinois PACE framework, but that is the basic structure of what the district coordinator would be responsible for, their focus and kind of a roadmap for them of how to work with students. And just kind of some context on the PACE framework. It is based in legislation. Up until now, it's been an optional thing for schools to do. A lot of schools find a lot of value in the PACE framework, so they've chosen to do that on their own. But this coming summer of July of 2025, it will actually be a requirement that schools engage with the PACE framework, either create their own or go with the Illinois PACE. And I think that's another great benefit of Gear Up is just that the schools included in Gear Up would have a person at the district to focus on these resources and services to students that align with something that's already a requirement of the state. So that's just kind of a little bit more about the position. And then I mentioned the subgrant funding. So another great benefit of Gear Up is that it's a highly funded grant and that we have the ability to reimburse for that coordinator position, but then we also have the ability to offer an additional $20,000 per school. So for your unit school district, it would actually be $20,000 for the junior high school and $20,000 for the high school, where you all can decide on things that you're working on that you would want to be funded that meet the goals of Gear Up. This is something that's very broad, as long as it's something that helps with career exploration, post-secondary, like I mentioned, financial literacy, all those things would tie into success after high school. And it really just requires a descriptive narrative. And then we would help you through the process. That does need to be approved by the Department of Ed. But then once those approvals have all gone through, you would have that funding available to do a variety of things. And I know from meeting with Dr. Ivory Tatum and Ms. Dyken that you all have a plan in place to expand what you're doing with career exploration. I think this would be an excellent opportunity to really be able to bring some like advanced resources to your students to address those things. So the last thing I'll mention, and I don't have a ton of detail on this yet because like I mentioned, we just recently found out we're being awarded, but there will be a scholarship component to this as well, where Gear Up students are eligible for a scholarship post-graduation that can be applied simply because they're graduates of a Gear Up school. So this is actually our second Gear Up award. We did not have this component in our first award, so this is something we're working through as well. It will also be administered by ISAC. Like I mentioned, we have the structure kind of already in place to do these things. So it would be a scholarship awarded by ISAC, essentially with funding from the Department of Education. So, and one last thing, there's also a very high quality on-demand tutoring service that comes along with this. It's called tutor.com. Students can access it anywhere they have internet access 24 hours a day. They're only closed on major holidays, so they're very accessible to students and have highly trained, highly vetted tutors that can work with students on a variety of topics and really help walk them through any kind of homework question they might have. We had this service with the previous grant and it was very popular. Students really excelled by using it, and it's a nice service to offer to schools and to the students. So I wanted to mention that one as well. But I think that those are my bullet points. So I'm definitely willing to answer any questions or can go into any more detail on anything I've provided here. But I appreciate your time tonight.
Board members, any questions? ahead, Sherry.
I'm sorry, I had to swallow first. Yeah, hi. I did have a couple questions when I read the document here. First of all, the tutoring, you answered that part, so that is this live tutors online that will interact with them? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes. So the company that runs tutor.com is called the Princeton Review, and they highly vet the tutors, train them on working with students, and then they come from very specialized areas. We found that this can be really helpful with especially like advanced math and science, where you know, after school or in-person tutoring might not always have availability of that advanced level of skill sets, where this online tutoring service really does offer very experienced tutors who are able to work with students really from home, which is great too. They don't necessarily have to be able to stay after school. It just requires internet access. So yeah, I think I can provide more details if you had other questions on that, but that's kind of an overview.
That's really a great service. Is the district coordinator a full-time position, or is that someone that would be hired and exceed the responsibilities that they have at the district?
Yeah, it is a full-time position, and because we wrote it in with the application of our grant, and it is required, so it will be throughout the full 7-year duration of the grant at the full-time status. And then really they're just dedicated to making sure everything is met with Gear Up, that we're meeting all the compliance requirements that we have to meet, entering data, working with students directly, or working with teachers who are working with students to make sure the data is being accounted for and things like that. But yes, it is a full-time position.
One more question. You mentioned the data that you're going to be collecting and collected in the agreement. It does refer to that. What type of data are you going to be collecting?
It's strictly demographic data, just so we can get your student rosters. That coordinator would go in, and whenever they do an activity with students, or maybe the students do a field trip or a college visit, something like that, they can go in and account for those kind of activities. So then we can look back and show the effects of our services on post-secondary attainment, enrollment, those kind of different things. That's kind of how the Department of Ed measures success for a Gear Up grant. So we really just take those things and apply the services, and then we can kind of track and see, starting in 6th or 7th grade, if a student does all 7 years of the grant, then they've done all these activities and services. What do their outcomes look like once they're getting towards the end of high school and deciding on a post-secondary path?
So would you be also collecting like test scores or things like that?
Yeah,
Achievements?
I believe, yeah, we do look at test scores. What we'll do is we ask for read-only access to the Iowa system, and we kind of pull from there. I believe test scores is a part of it whenever we're looking at evaluation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? All right, so this is up for a vote later on tonight. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate the time and consideration.
We do have an administrative report tonight on the district calendar draft for next year.
Okay. Thank you. And I think John is going to, I think if you just want to pull up the feedback. Okay, I'll keep talking while you kind of set the stage for the work that we did between the time that the first draft was brought. So if board members remember, we brought a very similar, basically the same draft to you in December for a first read and a first discussion. And we kind of talked about the work of the committee up to that point. And then the board did ask that we go back and consider, have more considerate discussion around how to incorporate a religious holiday, specifically one of our Jewish holidays, into the calendar, and do that within the scope of what we are required to do in terms of the number of student attendance days that we have to have. So we did that. We went back to the committee. We had another in-person meeting. We had lots of conversations via email. And one of the things that the committee decided to do was to survey our staff. And so I think that is more so what we wanted to share tonight. So I think John's looking for that. So board members have a copy of that in front of them. So we shared a Google survey, just a very basic survey with staff members. It was open for about 2 weeks, and during around the time, we closed it right around Martin Luther King Day, right up the day after that. And so a couple reminders from me, and we asked our administrators to make sure that they allowed time in one of their staff meetings for staff to have a few minutes to go in and complete the survey. That's always helpful. We had 455 responses, so it's the other survey, the one that has. So we asked our staff members out of those 455 folks to just tell us a little bit about themselves. It was a very much anonymous survey. I was the only one who saw the names, and that's because we did a few raffle drawings. You'd be surprised how much adults will work for a few incentives and for a few raffle prizes. So just kind of throwing out that we would be raffling off a few things. It really does help with the motivation to get people to participate. So we did have to collect names in order to be able to have our randomized drawings. So I was the only one who saw those. No one from the committee saw other people's responses. So I want to make sure I said that out loud. So of the people who completed the survey, we had 329 teachers or licensed staff members. That could be a non-classroom teacher, like a social worker or some kind of specialist position, or a general classroom teacher, or an elective teacher, or some kind of special teacher like fine arts or PE. And then we had 92 of our support staff members complete the survey, which is a great response. That is people like our teaching assistants, or maybe someone from ASCCP would fall in that category. And then we had administrators who also completed. So we had 28 administrators. And John, I don't know if you can make it a little bit bigger, but the board members have a copy, so it's okay. And then one of the things that this category kind of down here at the bottom that was something that the committee talked a lot about. So in case board members are wondering, why do we have this data? Why are we asking this question? So at the bottom of the first question there, it's all the way at the top, John, is if the staff member has a personal or familial connection with Unit 4, or if the staff member has a connection with the university, or if the staff member is a parent in our district, or we also talk about if they're a parent somewhere else. So there was a lot of discussion around mirroring as much as we could to Unit 4's calendar. I shared data, I think I said this in our December presentation, that it's always important for us to know how many of our staff members live in the Champaign or Savoy area, because it does impact us in our ability to be able to have a regular school day and be able to provide subs for all of our classrooms and have a safe learning environment for the day. So there was a lot of discussion amongst the calendar committee around the importance of trying to mirror what Unit 4 does. I know it was kind of a mixed response. I think some people really see the value in that, and then other people see the value in that. I'm in Urbana. I love Urbana. Urbana is very different from Unit 4, and that we have had some nuances to our calendar that have been very different for many years, and that's okay, and we should keep it that way. So I think we put that question on there just because it was really interesting for us to kind of just know that information. The connection to the university question was intentional because later on in the survey, you'll see there's a question about, do we want to at some point, not this year, not even next year, but at some point, is there interest in our community to start thinking about doing something different with our spring break? When we started, and I don't even know when we started, I'd have to go back into the annals of history to find out when we started mirroring our calendar to the university's spring break. And it's just what I've always known. I don't know that I've never known us to do anything different. But our community has changed. Our demographic has changed. Our student demographic has changed. I have heard over the last few years that there are staff members who would like us to consider that as an option. So it came up in the committee. One of our teachers brought it up and said, is this something that we'd ever consider? So we discussed it in the committee, and we said this would be a great time. Since we were surveying staff, let's put it on the survey and see what kind of response we got. So we had 19 staff members who, out of the 455, who said they also are connected with the university. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that question. And then, of course, we have the question there, out of our 455 people who completed the survey, 41 of them are also parents in the district. So that is, it's nice that we also have a little parent perspective from the 455 people, although we surveyed staff and we didn't send a separate survey to parents. So one of the questions that isn't listed that we did ask, the committee wanted to know is, where are your students going to school? Like, what districts and what communities do people live in? So that's not on your survey, but it is on the response copy. So it is a really wide range. Like, our folks live and send their kids to kind of all over our community. So another data point that we shared in the committee was we ran data. We could see, and we do this every year, and I use this information when I'm making decisions about e-learning. When we see the weather reports and we're making a decision about whether or not we should have an e-learning day, it matters to me how many people are driving in. So, we have people who drive from Muhammad, from Mattoon, Charleston, from St. Joe, from, Villa Grove. We have folks who drive on country roads to get here. So it really makes a difference to me and to our team when we think about staff who, if we have to have a school on a really bad weather day, we are also putting the safety of some of our staff members in, that is a risk, right, when we're asking people to get to school on country roads, and that's really the only way they can get here. Oh, there is, they have to navigate some really, maybe bad travel spaces, and they can't just get on the interstate, or there are other odd ways that they may get to school. So we do that through we can run data from our system where we know where our folks live, but what we don't know is how many of them have children. Because one of the things we often talk about is when we have e-learning days, a lot of our staff members are also have to do e-learning with their own children. So we'd never really collected that data. We never really knew, out of all of our staff and where they live, how many of them are also trying to navigate e-learning at home with their own children. So that was the question that we have. Does the calendar impact your family's need for childcare? And so 22.9% of our folks said, yes, it does. So the intent of that question is really, it tells us that when we have e-learning days and when we have other things that impact our calendar, it also is impacting our staff who also have children at home. We were very interested in knowing what level of grade, like most of our folks, it looks like, still have children in elementary school, which was interesting to us. So now we're going to get into basically the feedback. So those first few questions were just kind of some info gathering that the committee, just some interesting info that we wanted to know. So the main intent, as we discussed with the board, was to talk about the staff members' feelings about adding one religious holiday to the calendar. And I know you don't have the full question, so I'm going to read the question exactly how it was written on the survey. How do you feel about adding one religious holiday to the 25-26 school calendar? So Yom Kippur is being considered for 25-26, Thursday, October 2nd. But there are other Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, etc. holy days that fall on traditional school days. Unit 4 will recognize Yom Kippur in their 25-26 calendar. Currently, the only religious holiday that is a standalone non-attendance day is Good Friday / spring holiday. Adding any days off means we need to exchange a day off somewhere else in the calendar year to still have 176 student attendance days. So what that means is our staff members, so the reason that question is so long is we wanted to make sure our staff members understood what we were really asking them. That we were saying, yes, we want to know how you feel about adding one religious holiday, not 4 or 5, not, 10, one religious holiday to 25-26. But that also means because we have 176 student attendance days right now in the calendar as it exists, the draft that we had, it means we have to take something off or give something up, which is why that question was really long and had a lot of extra information in it. And so as you can see from the responses, so 1 through 4 is kind of the scale here. So 4 is you were strongly in favor. 3 is somewhat in favor, and then the 1 and 2 were more on the negative side of the scale, with 1 being strongly opposed and 2 being somewhat opposed or not in favor of. So if you look at the 3 and 4, that is the more favorable side. 246 out of the 455 people said yes, this is something they'd like to consider. So more than half, about 54% of the staff members said, yes, we'd like to consider that. And then on the 1-2 side, the people who said either strongly opposed or somewhat opposed to that were 209 or 46%. So since there was interest, there is, more than half of our folks said, yes, let's consider that. So then we get into asking them a few more questions. There was a short answer question that followed, and you guys don't have that because it's really hard to give you those without running like lots of pages. But there were lots of questions. The question was, what suggestions would you give? And so we basically had everything from our Muslim holiday, Eid, there were a lot of those listed, to, of course, we'd already listed Yom Kippur, so there weren't additional ads for that, but several folks added in the Muslim holidays. There were comments about switching Good Friday, which is later on listed in the survey. Let me see. There weren't a lot of other additional holy day holidays mentioned other than the Muslim holidays. There are a lot of comments, though, about several people who commented and said if we don't add, if we decide not to add one, maybe we shouldn't have any. So if we decide not to have a Jewish holiday, or if we don't have a Muslim holiday, then we shouldn't have any Christian holidays either. So there were several comments about that. Several people commenting about separation of church and state, meaning, we don't have any religious holidays. So it was just a really wide range of short answer comments in there. So then on to starting to talk about what are some of the things that we might give up in the calendar. So now that we established that there was some interest. So then we started kind of asking the question of, okay, there's some interest in exploring that. So what would be some of the giveaways? And the first one we talked about was the starting the school year earlier. So if you look at the current draft as it is, we'd already talked about starting the school year August 13th with having Institute Day on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this would mean we would be either starting on that Monday or that Tuesday for staff, and then the students would be coming like Thursday or Friday. So if you can see the numbers here for that. Whoops, make sure that I'm looking at the right one. Yes. So favorable side was about 41.5%. And then on the not so favorable side was 266 folks, 58.5%. So a little more, not as favorable. And then we get into some of those really really holidays that are really important, or days off that we have really worked hard to get into our calendar. And this Wednesday before Thanksgiving one is one of those days. So for years and years, I did the calendar committee when I was a deputy superintendent. I was on the calendar committee as a principal, and this was something that we talked about for a long, long time, was having the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That was something that we traded. This was what we traded for Veterans Day. So if you know anything about the holidays, Veterans Day is one of those holidays that you can be in school for Veterans Day as long as you're doing lots of activities. And it was something we proposed to staff years ago, I think in about 2014. And overwhelmingly, everyone said, yes, we will honor Veterans Day. We prefer that our students are not in school. It was hard at first, but I do think many staff members have seen the value of having our students in school on Veterans Day, so they're learning more about what it means to be a veteran, and instead of some of the things they might be doing on their days off instead. And the trade-off for that was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So you can see from this response, our staff do not want to go back to having to work and give that day back for a day off to come to work on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So that one, I don't even need to read the numbers. It was pretty much an overwhelming no, we don't want to do that. Adding a day at the end of the school year. So in 25-26, not every calendar will it make that big of a difference, but for this particular year, 25-26, ending the last day of school is actually on a Friday. So asking staff, asking students to come back on a Monday to add a day to the calendar, to ask students to come back for a Monday day and have that be the last day of school would be hard. We probably would not have great attendance from students or staff, I'll just be honest. And so if you look at the responses here, you'll see that this also was not a favorable choice. About 73.9% of our staff are not in favor of, and I mean, I agree, it would be really hard. We'd have very few students in attendance, and it would be a difficult day to have school, but it would be something that we would do. So, but if you look at the results, you can see that it would be, it's not something that our staff are in favor of doing. So then we had another category, so those were some ideas of some things that we would trade. So then here are some other ideas that we called it, would you rather? So the question reads, you don't have the full question, so I'm going to read it to you. So this is kind of a would you rather, a couple questions here. So how would you like the district to approach the following ideas? Would you rather the district continue fall break in October and or extend Thanksgiving break, add days for the full week off for Thanksgiving, and then we said to staff, please read all choices carefully before you select. So this question came after much conversation from several members on the calendar committee who, yes, we like fall break. I think fall break is something that it wasn't something that we came up with. If you know the history, it was basically when Unit 4 2 years ago ended the balanced calendar. It was fall break was something they added into their calendar when they wanted to continue to honor the balanced calendar option for their community. They added the fall break as that week for their staff. Well, as we know, anytime something happens in Unit 4 with a full week off of school, that has a pretty much significant impact on us when more than half of our staff members live in Champaign. When that happened, we followed suit the following year and we added fall break to our calendar. And the response from people has been really positive. People have liked fall break. Post-pandemic, it has really been helpful, I think, with giving us that additional time for mental health, for self-care. So it has actually been a nice addition to our calendar, and so I think people are enjoying it. However, not everyone agrees with that. There's some people who feel very strongly that our time would be more useful to have a full week off for Thanksgiving. And there were several people in the committee who felt that way. So we thought, okay, we're sending out a survey. Let's ask our staff what they think. And as you can see, the purple, basically 65% of our staff members say, nope, we would like you to keep the calendar exactly the way it is. We like our Wednesday off before Thanksgiving, and we like having fall break the way it is right now. The other options were adding the Monday and Tuesday, which would give us a full week, keeping the full week of fall break, and only having Thursday, Friday off. I would rather have no fall break, so that was a really small percentage. I would rather keep a full week off for fall break, and I don't remember what the rest of that one was. But anyway, our staff said, nope, we like what we're doing, and we like to keep it the way it is. And then the next question. This was something that we talked about. Basically, I think we talked about it more so because we had the opportunity to, unbeknownst to us, we had to take a e-learning day on the day we came back from winter break, when all the other districts mostly around us, except for Muhammad, had a Teacher Institute Day on the January 6th, the Monday we came back. So we've talked about doing this before, and it is very mixed. The committee was mixed, and clearly our staff is very mixed. So if you've been in the district for a while, you'll remember that years ago at the high school, our students used to take finals when they would come back from winter break. And it was something that, again, it was very mixed. Some people loved it and thought the students liked having that break and teachers liked having that break, but it was also really hard to come back after being out of school for 2 weeks and then take a week of finals. So years ago, we switched from that model, and we moved finals to before winter break, and we moved grades and all those things before winter break. And so that's just the way we've been doing it since then. But with the Teacher Institute model, which is what most of our districts around us do, they kind of ease into students attending after winter break with at least one. I think Champaign does 2 days of Teacher Institute before the students come back. So the teachers come back for 2 days and then students. Most of the districts around us just had 1 day of Institute, and then the students came. So that day really caught us all by surprise, kind of having that extra day. And so we thought, let's ask. This is a good time to kind of talk about that. Is that something that people want to consider? It was very split right down the middle. So right now we have language in our contract about this, so it would be something that we'd have to negotiate with the union. But seeing that there was a real split, we decided we're just going to keep it the way it is and not make any changes there. And then we kind of got into, is there any feedback on other things that we need to be changing in the calendar? How satisfied are you with the current calendar the way it is? So if we don't change anything else. And so we ask questions about how do you like the idea of having the Wednesday, the August 13th start day, those 3 days, and having our students start on a Monday. So that was something we wondered about. There were some people who didn't like the idea of having the students for a whole week. They liked the idea of kind of splitting it up, of typically, the teachers come for a day or two, and then the kids come on Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. And so we weren't quite sure how staff would like the idea of having a 5-day student week that second week. So you can see from these numbers, people kind of like that 3-day, starting on that Wednesday, and then having the students start on Monday, a fresh week for student attendance on the week of the 18th. So that was very favorably a response from staff. We wanted to know what people thought about the 3 Teacher Institute days, something else we've never done before. We gave them kind of a model of what those 3 days might look like, and asked their thoughts on that. And again, very favorable response from staff. We also talked to them about the changes. We moved the student family-led conferences back to right before fall break and right before spring break. And staff members really value the idea of being able to have those conferences with families right before everyone's going on those long breaks. So that was really favorable as well. This is the question about UIUC, which also was pretty split. So we talked in the committee quite a bit about, there are a lot of factors that we would have to take into consideration if we even consider doing something like this. We definitely would not do it unless Unit 4 also did it. After we sent our survey out, I heard a couple weeks later Unit 4 sent a survey out as well. So I think they had a very similar question when they heard that we asked about spring break. I heard they asked the same question because it's something I think they've been wondering too. So we would never even consider this if they did not also consider it as well. But other things to think about is Parkland takes the same spring break as the university. We have students who are dual credit enrolled that go to Parkland. It's a small number of kids, usually 25, 30 students, but that's still 25, 30 students who'd be going to classes at Parkland while we were on spring break. So there are other little things to consider that are kind of big things, but there's still, those changes would impact other areas if we decided to make that change. So based on this response, it was really pretty much 40% said, no, I disagree. We don't want you to consider making that change. But then there were others who said, yes, I do think spring break is early. I would like us to consider, thinking about doing something different. But the majority of our people did say, 40% said, nope, let's keep it the way it is. But again, unless there was interest from other groups like Parkland or Unit 4 or something, wanting to do something different. This was something we just really wanted to see where our staff were with talking about this. Yeah.
Right now it's in March 17 to 21.
Mhm.
When would you, either you do it early, when the Parkland or the university does have the spring break?
So we're not going to change it, but if we were, the options were we would move it later. So this, what staff are saying who bring this up, they say it's really early. Like March 16th is a very early spring break. So that means the whole month of April. There's some years the whole month of April, then we have no days off.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons why it comes up, is because there are years when we follow the university where it could be even the week before that. And then we have that long, like a 6-7 week period where we have no days off of school. So that's one of the reasons I think why.
To make it a bit late, even so it doesn't match when University of Parkland.
Yeah, so they were saying, can we think about doing something different? Could we do it later? Could we do it in April? Or would we, one of the suggestions would it follow Easter? First, that was just one of the suggestions that people gave. Would it be fixed? Would it be a date that we would pick in the middle of April, and every single year it is always that date no matter what, and people always know spring break is always going to be the week of April 10th or something like that? Yep, and we would just kind of pick a date in April. So it's just the fact some years it's really early. Like March 16th is early, considering the amount of school we have left after that. And it's cold, and sometimes we have snow, and it's just a long time to go without a break. So that's one of the reasons people bring it up. And then the last couple questions are just getting feedback on how satisfied are you with the draft as is presented. And so most of our staff, you can see on the favorable side, so about 84% of our staff are thinking that the draft calendar as we have it, they're satisfied with it the way it is. So that was the 455 people weighing in on the draft calendar. So then we went back to the calendar committee, and then we kind of surveyed them, and we pretty much, we kind of did the same thing that we do when we have these large district committees, is we go back to the group and say, okay, so here are our options. And if you're a member of the committee, you vote, and we agree as a committee to abide by the majority of the group, and that's what we're going to take to the board. And so here were the 4 options that, after looking at all of the feedback from our staff members, is keep the current draft as presented to the board. And as you saw, we had a large number of our staff members who were satisfied with the calendar as it was presented. So that was, of course, one of the options. There were quite a few people. I know you guys couldn't see all the comments, but a lot of comments said we either do all or nothing. So if we don't add if we're not able to add a religious holiday like Yom Kippur, I do think there might be years where we would need to talk about adding Eid. I didn't say this, but in the 25-26 calendar, that holiday falls during spring break next year. So that was one of the reasons why it wasn't a big consideration, because it isn't a student attendance day anyway. So next year it would be already during our spring break, which is when the U of I takes spring break. But there were a lot of people who said makes spring holiday Good Friday a student attendance day, and then take Yom Kippur. Have students attend through December 19th, and teachers would work virtually. So that was an option that was presented in the committee, where typically our students go home one day early. Their last day is one day early. And our teachers have it's a teacher institute / work day. So they have a little bit of a meeting, and then the rest of the day they work on their end of the year responsibilities like grades and things like that. So what we talked about for 25-26 is we'd have students go until Friday, and then the teachers would be able to do those work responsibilities. It wouldn't be a student attendance day, so it wouldn't impact the calendar, and the teachers could do those responsibilities as a virtual work day from home. And then the last option was start the school year one day earlier, and then trade that day for Yom Kippur. So as you can see, we have 24 people on the committee. We tried really hard to get 100%, but we couldn't. And we had 21 out of the 24 people who voted. And 11 people, or 52% of the people on the committee, voted to keep the draft the way it is. 6 people voted to make spring holiday a student attendance day and take Yom Kippur as a fall holiday. 3 people, 14%, voted to have students attend on Friday, and then on the December 19th day, and teachers would work virtually, and then we'd trade that day for Yom Kippur. And then 1 person voted to start the school year one day earlier. So then the recommendation from the committee would be majority 52% is to keep the current draft as the way it was proposed, which aligns with what a lot of our staff members said when they said they're satisfied with the calendar as it was presented. So that's why you have pretty much the same calendar in front of you today that you had in front of you in December.
Board members, questions? When is this coming up for a vote?
It would be on the February 18th meeting, and then that kind of gives people an opportunity if there are questions, or especially since the public really didn't see the survey data in advance. We want board members to see the survey data first. But now that we've shared the survey data, if there are, we want to have an opportunity for public feedback if they're parents or others who would like to share feedback between now and the 18th.
I know that it's a very difficult decision and difficult for parents when they have to have a different day off of school. But children are still attending 176 days of school. We're not going to change that.
Oh, no.
We're still having that requirement. So we understand when parents say gee, they want their children to be in school more often or more days, but it's 176 days no matter where you look at it, because they
Absolutely.
change it.
Yes.
There were 3 different opportunities that I had through my education to read the book, How to Lie with Statistics. And I think it's for this particular moment that I prepared me for it. Because when you talk about 21 students and 21 voters or
Yep.
people on the committee, it's only a difference of one person that's making this choice. One person is making this choice. And I really was impressed that there were 10 people that really considered this, that they didn't agree on how to do it, but they did think that it was important enough that it should be considered. And there are so many times when we say we're different, we're Urbana, we have our own needs, our own way of doing things, our own priorities, but yet so many of the other decisions that we make are based on the Unit 4 calendar, their spring break, their fall break, and we're one Jewish community. And it's very difficult. I think this was highlighted this year, and it was a mistake. It wasn't done on purpose or for, intentionally, but there was a concert that was scheduled on Rosh Hashanah. And it was the night of Rosh Hashanah, the very first night. Jewish holidays begin in the evening after sunset. And it was expected that the orchestra leader would be there to conduct this concert. She could not celebrate. So when people who say, let's have a separation between church and state, well, we want our students, our staff, to be able to have the freedom to participate, to honor their religion. And if we don't give them that opportunity, then why have this, we're not dividing church and state. We're telling them that they have to come. So that's another consideration. I know this is a very difficult decision, and it involves so many other things that you would have to align with as far as the days in the school. But I appreciate the fact that it's being discussed, and that there are some options that might be available.
And Sherry, you bring up a good point. I said this in December, but I didn't say it tonight, that I want to make sure that I mention this for people who might be watching tonight and didn't watch in December, that we've created a cultural calendar that we are going to share out in addition to our calendar, and we'll make it available on our website. And we are going to have that available to our administrators and our people who are doing the planning of calendar events. So they're aware of when a lot of these cultural celebrations and really religious holy days are occurring. So we're not doing things like planning family events and concerts and things like that. And even for our Muslim community, just the fact that one of their holiest days falls during spring break, it doesn't mean that it would be a date we wouldn't mention it, and we would still recognize that it is part of our cultural calendar. And while it might not be a student attendance day off, it still would be something that, as a district, we'd make sure our principals were aware for our students that might be fasting or might be, participating in other events in the school. So we're going to do a better job as a district, I think, to make sure that we're monitoring those things better, and that we have a more comprehensive view of what is happening. Because there have been a lot. That's just one example. Over the last few years, there have been, other things, a movie night or like fun things that we don't want students to, we don't want students to have,
Picture
or
day.
families to make choices.
Picture day.
Picture day or curriculum night or And we want our administrators to be equipped with the tools that they need to, one, make just good decisions about planning, but two, like for our students that are fasting, like during Ramadan, like, do you have another space for them to go so they don't have to go sit in the lunchroom with everyone else and watch all the other students eat when they aren't eating that week? And so, just making sure that we're having those conversations too, so.
And even assignments, tests, time to
Mhm.
study, those are things are factors as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
I lost my train of thoughts, but you mentioned that this gonna go out to the public and the community is gonna have opportunity to do an impact.
So we're not gonna do another survey, but yes, during the next 2 weeks, like send emails, email your board member or constituent with your comments or questions, or email someone from the committee if you know someone from the committee.
Are they going to be in each school giving information to the parents, like accessing information?
So
Or it's
we're
just
gonna
gonna be
put
in the
this on so the draft calendar will be on the website.
Okay.
And then we'll put the survey results on the website too, like if people wanna go and see it, so.
So
Is that
they
what
are
you meant? No?
No, what I mean is like if each school is going to give the information to the parents to be sure that they have the information.
You mean give the draft calendar to
Mhm.
parents? Oh, yeah, we can ask, yeah, we can send, I mean, I can send it out as a Skylert, but again, it's
Mhm.
better received sometimes when it comes directly from their school. So, yeah, we can ask the principals to send it out
Right.
so they know that this is the draft, and if people have comments, to send it. Sure, yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Right, anyone else? Please.
I had first a comment. If you're going to put this up on the website
Mhm.
and for other surveys that you might do and then give to us, I'm really going to request that we have no
We will
ellipses.
Say that again?
No ellipses, that
Oh.
we get the whole question and
That's
the
just the way
whole
Google Form does
description.
it when they,
Right, and so, because it was very confusing.
yes.
And it's very important, at least when back in the old days, when I studied statistics, how you asked the question was very important to how you understood the responses. And so it's very important that we see and that the public sees the whole question. And so that's just a request that happen. What I saw here when I looked at it, and I saw a group of people that more than half really thinks this is an important thing to do. And it's probably the right thing to do. But then when it came down to actually doing it, it was inconvenient for this reason for this group, and it was inconvenient for this reason for this group, and another reason for another group. And so we had no consensus about actually doing it. And I think it's an important thing to do. I was here when they started having spring holiday. When our spring break was tied to the university, and our contract started allowing 2 days of paid religious holidays. Somebody said, "Oh my gosh, Good Friday, what will happen with Good Friday?" And there was a survey that went out, and everybody answered, will you take Good Friday off to go to church? And a lot of teachers said they would take Good Friday off to go to church, so we have spring holiday. I know we don't have the same numbers of Jewish students or Islamic students, but fair is fair, and right is right. I really think that we need to, I don't like to go against a committee, but I think we need to really consider this, and I want, and I don't know who made up the survey or anything like that, But I think when I can't remember which,
Yeah, we kind of talked about the questions, yeah.
yeah, I can't remember, oh, here, starting the school year even earlier to accommodate more days off. That, if it had just said starting the school year a
Earlier.
day earlier.
Okay.
There's a real, and we may all think that, and we may all say it that way. But writing it in the survey led people down a direction. And so, that's just my opinion, and I think we really have to consider this as, as being a leader for the school district. I don't like to even think of myself that way, but that's just my comment.
Okay, thank you.
What was Unit 4's solution to this problem? I mean,
They are taking Yom Kippur.
well, I know that, but
Oh.
what was their solution to getting the 176 days?
Oh, they do I am going to reserve my comment because I don't know that if I counted up all the days in their count, yeah, so I don't know. Because
I
they're
did-
often out of school on days when we're not in school, so I don't
Okay.
We might have to just do a comparison
We
and
might
see.
have to just do a side by side.
I was just wondering, did they start on August 12th? Do they have school on Good Friday? That's
I thought they
that's-
started earlier, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, their calendar is very unique in the days that they have off. They take those Mondays off every Monday for PD, and their calendar is really, really unique in,
Okay.
they have those professional development.
Okay.
those
I was
days,
just
so-
curious, that's all.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess be prepared in 2 weeks to have a more comprehensive discussion on this before a vote. Thank you, everybody. Moving on with our agenda, we do have a pair of action items tonight. First up is the Gear Up Grant Agreement approval, which was presented earlier this evening. Is there a motion for the floor?
I'll move that we accept the grant. Sorry, Ben.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any further questions, comments, or discussion? Roll call, please.
Okay. Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Hickson,
Yes.
Member Baxley,
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes, President Pulowski,
Yes.
and Member Staton.
Yeah.
Motion passes. Next up is the request to adopt the resolution in support of Vision 2030, which was presented at our last board meeting. It's a legislative initiative from the IASA. Thank you very much.
ISA, IESB, all of them.
Yep. Is there a motion for the floor?
So moved. Motion to adopt Vision 2030?
So moved. Is there a second?
I second.
So moved and seconded. Any further questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, again, a roll call vote is in order.
Member Hickson,
Yes.
Member Baxley,
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes, President Pulowski.
Yes?
Member Staton, and Member Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes. We do have a pair of future special/executive meetings scheduled. Actually, aren't there three? There's one this coming Thursday. It's the first of three meetings we have to comply with state guidance involving having a school that is in the
Intensive
designation. The first one is a board self-evaluation, which is basically kind of like marriage counseling in a sense. You give a chance to sit down with a counselor and kind of discuss how we as a board operate and how we can improve how we operate. That is one of the exemptions from OMA. So that will be a closed session, and we did check with, there was a question from the public with regards to that. We did check with IASB, and yes, that is allowed to be a closed session and will be a closed session. But the subsequent trainings, which are also led by IASB trainers, will be open sessions. So the meeting on February 20th, and then the third one that is yet to be scheduled will be an open session.
Were we told where the meetings are? Because I wasn't
Oh,
sure.
but it's going to be in the new, Health and Wellness Center.
On
Yep.
the 6th.
On
Yeah,
the-
that room in
Yeah,
the
so
back.
in 2 days, we'll be in the Health and Wellness Center to have our closed session. And sorry, there's also a student discipline at 1101 East University on February 10th. And
Paul, the last time we had a training, there were some members of the public who did come and wanted to make a statement. And we weren't expecting, because we've never had that before. Can we make sure that there are chairs available in case?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all of our closed sessions start in
With
open
public
and with a opportunity for the public to address the board. And we will comply with that with these as well. The one on Thursday, I think, is at 6 p.m. at the Health and Wellness Center. Yes, in 2 days. Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Yeah, so I have a hard time getting out of work before 5:30. 5:30 is often hard. Ask my wife. Probably 2 to 3 hours. Okay. Superintendent's report.
Okay, so a celebration. So many of you know Michael. He was one of our first student ambassadors. So more good news about a scholar and a scholarship. So Michael was recently named a Cameron Impact Scholar. So here's his quote. "I've realized it's not always about accomplishments. It's about the vision and your drive to actually benefit those around you." So Michael is going to be awarded a 4-year scholarship covering his tuition, fees, and books at any accredited college or university of his choosing. Each year, 3,000 students, 3,000 students apply for Cameron Impact Scholarships, and just 100 of those applicants are selected to participate in the interview process. 15 students are chosen for the scholarship. It is pretty intense. So a interviewer came to Urbana High School, and they interviewed me and Mr. Guzman. They interviewed a couple of Michael's teachers. And then he had to go through several levels of this interview process. So he hasn't decided which school he's going to attend, but he wants to be a teacher. And he wants to be an elementary education and special education teacher. So Catherine has done a story about this, so you can follow the story on Urbana Senior, nationally recognized with the Cameron Impact Scholarship. So congratulations to Michael. So this weekend, the UHS girls wrestling team took first place at regionals. So congratulations. There was a really nice story about them last night on WCIA2. I don't know if you saw that. We'll share that link with you guys. So they've interviewed Mr. Sexton and interviewed a couple of the students. And then they kind of were in the wrestling room, looked great too. So they were in the wrestling room, and they were actually having practice, so it was really cool. So they are really excited. So congratulations to them, and good luck as they move through regionals, or not regionals. What's next? Sectionals. Monday is NAPID. February 10th is National African American Parent Involvement Day. So our schools have various activities. So we'll share this with you in a bigger print form. Most of the schools are doing things like having guest readers or classroom activities where parents can just sign in and just go visit the classrooms. Some buildings are opening up during lunchtime and encouraging families to come and have lunch. And then go visit with their students in the classrooms. So if you're looking for this as a bigger version, it is listed on the website under NAPID Plans 2025. And I should say, I get this question every year, and if anyone asks you, please make sure our families know any and everyone is welcome. It may be called National African American Parent Involvement Day because when it started years ago, it was a call to action for African American parents to be more involved in their child's education. But it is definitely in our district, It's something where we invite all parents. You don't have to be African American to participate. So if anyone asks you that, please say they are more than welcome to visit the school and participate in any activities that are involved. Next is Black History Month. So this, of course, February kicks off the month of Black History. So several schools have started creating displays, and there will be other activities throughout the month that we will bring you, like we do all of our other celebrations throughout the year when we highlight our special groups. And this is one, I think this is at Thomas Paine, where they've started kind of decorating their doors and talking about some of the historical figures that they're learning about, which is, part of one of our mandated units of study. So they're showing the things that they're learning in their classrooms. Upcoming dates, the Special Education Family and Staff Advisory will be meeting February 12th, February 14th, Staff Development Day, and February 17th, there's no school President's Day. And I think that is the last one. I did want to make just one comment. It isn't on a slide, but I know there's been a lot of interest and a lot of conversation in the mayoral race, and we have city council members that are also running. If you didn't have an opportunity to watch the live stream to see both of our candidates last week, was that last Thursday? So I've watched that. If you haven't watched it, I'd encourage you to. So I know there has been a lot of questions kind of sent to me about if I'm endorsing one of the candidates. So as superintendent, my role is to work with our city government, to work with our mayor, whoever that might be. So, I wish Deshawn and Annie well in the election, and I've been keeping up on the things that they're saying and doing as they're campaigning, and I encourage everyone to definitely go out and vote. But I'm looking forward as the leader of our district to working with whoever the mayor might be. I say this all the time, and I know you guys know it because you're elected officials too, but our city is only as good as our public schools. So whoever our mayor ends up being, I hope they work really closely with us to make our schools, Urbana, the best that it can be. Urbana better together. So I just want to say that.
I appreciate you saying that because there was some confusion because your name was included on it, and that was kind of unfortunate that went
Yes.
out, that if you didn't support that. So
Yes.
appreciate you saying that.
So I needed to say it out loud. So yes.
All right, the chair would then entertain a motion to enter closed session. There would be no for the two purposes, which I have to read because one of them wasn't actually published in our agenda. So one is for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors or specific volunteers of the district or legal counsel of the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor or a volunteer of the district, or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government's Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act. And then oh, thank you.
Litigation, yeah.
Oh, it's the bottom here. It's the bottom. Litigation when an action against, affecting, or behalf of the particular district has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the district finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the closing meeting minutes. Is there a motion to enter closed session after 10-minute recess to that effect with no action afterwards? Is it moved by Sweset-Lally, and is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Langendorf, yes. President Pulowski.
Yes.
Member Baxley.
Yes?
Member Staton.
Yep.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Hickson.
Yes.
Okay. 10 minutes, and then